What's up, guys? We're going to talk about everything you must know about division for the GRE and SAT. Let's get right into it. All right, so here's your challenge problem. If you can already solve this one, you're probably good. But if not, go ahead and keep watching the video, and by the end of it, you should be able to solve this one for yourself. Okay, guys, so my first question for you is, what is division conceptually? And what I mean by that is, what actually is division, okay? So we know that multiplication is the process of repetitive addition, right? So if I have 2 multiplied by 3, this is saying that I'm going to add 2. I'm going to add 3 2's together, right? And that's going to give me 6. But what is division? Okay, so think about it for a second, and then let's see if you get it right. Okay, so division, because it's the inverse of multiplication, it's actually going to be the process of repetitive subtraction, okay? So the way that we can kind of think about this is, how many times can you repeat the subtraction operation until you get to 0, okay? So let's start with an example here. We have 40 divided by 10, okay? So what this is saying is, how many times can we subtract 10 from 40, okay? So we can do it once, right? We're going to get 40 minus 10 equals 30. And then second time, 30 minus 10 is 20. 20 minus 10 is 10. And then 10 minus 10 is 0. So how many times is that? Well, we can go ahead and count it, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So therefore, we can complete the subtraction operation 4 times. And therefore, 40 divided by 10 is 4, okay? Okay, so guys, here's my big question for you. Why is anything divided by 0 undefined, okay? So let's start with an example. Let's say 2 divided by 0, okay, guys? Why is that equal undefined? Okay, so let's think about it this way. Division is basically saying, how many times can 0 go into 2, right? And let's just remember that 0 plus 0 is 0. So if 0 plus 0 is 0, no matter how many times we add 0 to 0, we will never get to 2. That's the problem, because 0 plus 0 is just 0, okay? So essentially what this means is that 0 can go into 2 an infinite amount of times, and we're going to call this an undefined value, okay? Okay, so now let's talk about division and fractions, okay? So you guys probably know this should be review, but 1/4 is the same thing as saying 1 divided by 4, okay? So a fraction is really just a division problem, right? So when we are dividing, we are asking, how many times does the denominator go into the numerator? Okay, so just something to think about there, right? When we have a fraction, we're really saying, how many times can this denominator go into the numerator? Okay, so why does dividing by a fraction result in a larger number, okay? So guys, this might be really, really strange, because you think whenever I divide by something, it should get smaller, right? But let's start with this example right here. So we have 2 divided by 1/4, and we have that equals 4, okay? So remember, guys, what we're really saying with this setup here is we're asking how many 1/4 can go into 2, right? How many times can the denominator go into 2? And we know that the answer to this has to, in fact, be, okay, guys, I'm sorry. The answer should not be 4. That should be 8, all right? So just ignore that. Sorry about that little issue there, but let me go ahead and show you how we would solve this out. So this would be 2 multiplied by 4 over 1, and that's going to equal 8. Okay, guys? So that's just something to keep in mind. The answer is, sorry, guys, again, it should be 8. Okay? All right. So just as a general rule, when dividing by a fraction, flip the second fraction and multiply the 2 like so. All right, guys? So basically what you're going to do is just get them lined up like this. So we're going to have a divided by b divided by b divided by c. A lot of division there. And you're basically going to take this fraction on the bottom, and you're going to flip it. And then you're going to multiply the flipped version by this top version, okay? So that's going to be our final answer. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so here's my question to you. What does it mean for numbers to cancel out? Okay, so a lot of times we hear this, all right? So for example, if we have a times b times c divided by c equals ab, we're going to say that these c's are going to cancel out, okay? And now what does that actually mean? That's the biggest question here. So what it means is essentially what it's saying is that the c's are going to cancel out because c divided by c equals 1, okay? So anything multiplied by itself, anything multiplied by 1 is itself, so we leave out the 1, okay? So yeah, I guess just to kind of go back into that last problem there, right? We had a times b times c divided by c, right? We said that equals, what was it? ab plus 1, right? No, I'm sorry, it just equals AB, okay? And basically the reason for that is because this is the same thing as saying AB, and then we're just gonna have C over C, right? And we know that C divided by C, well, that's just gonna equal 1, so then we have AB times 1, and then that's gonna equal AB, okay? So just something to kind of really give you a clear example there, okay? All right, guys. So now this next slide right here, I want to show you the most common canceling out mistakes. And this just please don't do this, okay? But let's just go ahead and show you the example here. All right. So this is what students will sometimes do is they'll have their little problem here and they'll say, oh, look at that, a plus b divided by b. These are just going to cancel, right? Well, here, I guess think to yourself why that is not the case. All right. So think about it for a second and then let's get into it. I guess obviously this is wrong. Do not do this. You can only cancel something when after factoring it out, you arrive with a fraction that is equal to 1. Okay, guys, so what I mean by that is if it was ab divided by b, right, a times b, this is the same thing as saying a multiplied by b divided by b, which is just a times 1, and then that's just going to equal a, right? So these do cancel. But if we have a plus b, there's nothing to factor out here to be equal to 1, so yeah, don't do this. Okay, so guys, this is super, super interesting, okay? And the question is, why is anything to the power of 0 equal to 1, okay? So have you ever thought about this? I know I used to wonder why, and let me just give you the answer, okay? And think about it for a second, okay? So how can we think of exponents in terms of division, all right? So let's go ahead and think about this, all right? So if you guys remember from the multiplication video, right, x to the a power times x to the b power is the same thing as x to the a plus b power, right? And guys, it doesn't have to be x, it can be any value. As long as the bases are the same, you can just simply add those exponents right there, okay? So from this, it logically follows that x to the a times x to the negative b equals a minus b, right? Because if b is negative, then we just get a plus negative b, and then that simplifies down to a minus b, right? Okay, so that should make sense. But guys, what's one way that we can rewrite x to the 0, okay? So think about it for a second, and let's see if you get it right. All right, guys, so this is super, super cool, okay? One way that we can rewrite x to the 0 is to just say, all right, well, x to some number n minus that same number n, right? And because we have it in this format, we can just break it up into a multiplication problem. And then I know that x to the negative n, that's equivalent to 1 over x to the n, right, guys, just from our exponent rules. So what that means is now we have x to the n divided by x to the n. And guys, what is any number divided by itself? It's going to be 1. So there we go. And then, yeah, just kind of to reiterate here, taking a value to the power of 0 is the same thing as dividing a value by itself. By definition, this must equal 1. All right, guys. So anytime that you have, maybe, some value, right, we'll call it a to the 0, that has to equal 1 because this is equivalent to a divided by a. All right, guys. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's get to the next one. All right, guys, so that's it for now, right? We now have the foundation to solve this problem, okay? So let's go ahead and read out the question. So show that for any circle with radius r, the formula, okay, so radius r, the formula for an arc length L that corresponds to angle theta is given by L equals r theta. So guys, basically what this is saying is, what is the length of this little section right here, right, guys? This little section right here, what is that length? Okay, so this is a very interesting question, and let's go ahead and start breaking it down first. Okay, so if you will recall, the circumference of a circle, right? Circumference is the length, or I should say it is the perimeter, right? It's the perimeter of the circle. All right, guys, so if the circumference is this whole thing right here, sorry, that was kind of nasty. If it's the perimeter, right, it's like if I were to just take this circle right here and then just stretch it out into a line, that would be the value of the circumference, okay? So what that means then is that we probably need to use this somehow, right? And I told you it relates to division, so let's think about this, right? So if circumference is equal to pi d, right? Now we're not given diameter, we're given radius. I mean, technically radius is just, 1/2 the diameter, but let's put it in terms of radius here. So if this is going to be 2 pi r for the circumference, then what I can do here is I can say, all right, well, the arc length is some fraction of the, what do you call it? It's some fraction of the circle, right? So I'm going to have this right here, and then I'm going to need some fraction right here. All right, guys, now here's where it gets really interesting, okay? So theta, right? Theta is our angle, right? And we know that in radians, right, there's 2 pi radians in a circle. And that's the same thing as saying 360 degrees in a circle, right? So what that means is that, well, if theta is some radians, right, I'm going to end up with theta divided by 2 pi, right? And what this is going to give me is this is the fraction right? The fraction or essentially percentage of the circumference C, right? Okay, so now guys, look what we can do. I now have L equals 2 pi, and then I can, factor out this 2 pi, so I'll bring it out to the bottom here. And then now I'm left with r theta, okay? So now guys, just like we talked about, right? We can cancel these out because they're the same thing, and I'm left with L equals r theta. Okay, so this is the answer in radians. Now, if you wanted the answer in degrees, you'd basically do the exact same thing, except instead of using radians, you would use degrees. So let me show you what that looked like. So we ended up with L equals 2 pi r, and then what I do is I do theta over 360 degrees. All right, guys, and then that would be our answer. Okay, guys, so just to reiterate, in degrees, well, I shouldn't say in degrees because our units, again, are going to be units of length, but I'll say if theta in degrees, then this is our answer, and if theta in radians, this is our answer. All right, guys, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Please like and subscribe and share this video if you want. It would really help me out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.